My name is Teresa Clark. I'm 38 years old, and for most of my adult life, I believe stability was something you built the same way you build a system, deliberately, layer by layer, with no room for error. I work as a senior systems analyst for a logistics company in Columbus, Ohio. My job is predictable, mostly remote, good pay, stable hours. I leave the house twice a week for in-person meetings, and the rest of my time is spent mapping processes, fixing inconsistencies, and catching small mistakes before they turn into expensive problems. I like routine. I pay bills early. I cook most nights. I don't let things pile up, on my desk or in my life. That was my baseline. And for a long time, it included my relationship. My boyfriend, Marcus Hale, is 35. We've been together for 11 years. Not married, but everything else looked the part. Shared routines, shared responsibilities, a townhouse with a manageable mortgage, 2 car payments nearly finished. From the outside, we made sense. Calm, stable, functional. The kind of relationship people assume will just continue. About a year ago, Marcus started calling me boring. Not joking, not teasing, flat, measured. Like he was stating the fact he had already accepted. At first, I treated it like frustration. People say things when they're stressed. He works as a regional sales manager for a medical supply distributor. Long hours, constant pressure, unpredictable clients. But it didn't stop. It sharpened. You're too predictable, Teresa. You never surprise me. Other people actually live a little. I remember standing in our kitchen one night, drying my hands on a towel and reminding him, calmly, that we had just remodeled the kitchen and paid for it in cash. He looked at me, almost amused. That's practical, he said, not exciting. That was the first time I realized we were no longer speaking the same language. Over time, the tone shifted from criticism to comparison. If I suggested staying in on a Friday, he would roll his eyes. Of course you would. If I asked about his day, he would snap back. You wouldn't get it. Your job is safe. He liked that word, safe. He used it like an insult. The first time he said it in front of other people was at a happy hour with his coworkers. I had agreed to go, something I don't usually enjoy, but I make exceptions when it matters. We were standing near the bar when someone asked what I did. Marcus answered for me. She's dependable, he said, smiling just enough to make it sound harmless, but about as exciting as plain oatmeal. There was laughter, not cruel, just casual, but it lingered. I didn't react, not there. I finished my drink. I drove us home. I went to bed, and sometime between turning off the lights and staring at the ceiling in the dark, something shifted. Not because I agreed with him, because I started paying attention. After that night, I stopped defending myself, not out of resignation, out of focus. I didn't argue when he called me boring. I didn't counter his comments with logic. I didn't try to prove anything. I observed. Marcus's schedule started changing around the same time his comments escalated. Sales is cyclical. Late nights happen. I understand that. What changed was the frequency. 2 nights a week turned into 3, sometimes 4. Client dinners, strategy meetings, last-minute calls. His phone, which used to sit face up on the kitchen counter, was suddenly always face down. He started taking calls in the spare bedroom. Door closed, quiet voice. None of that proves anything on its own. I know that. Correlation is not causation. So I waited. The first real shift came from something small. One Tuesday afternoon, I left the house early to grab coffee before a virtual meeting. I needed air, a change of environment. There's a cafe near Marcus's office that stays quiet mid-afternoon. I've been there before. As I walked in, I saw him. Corner table. Not alone. Sitting across from a woman I recognized immediately. Lean across, his ex-girlfriend. He had described her before, briefly, dismissively. That was years ago, he once said. It ended for a reason. They weren't working. No laptops, no documents, just 2 cups of coffee, and a kind of closeness that didn't belong in a casual meeting. They leaned toward each other, laughing softly. Familiar, too familiar. I didn't walk over. I didn't confront him. I stepped back before he could see me and walked out of the cafe. My hands were steady, my breathing even, not calm, controlled. That night when he came home, he said nothing about seeing Lena, nothing about coffee, nothing about leaving the office in the middle of the afternoon. Instead, he complained that I hadn't done the laundry the way he preferred. I listened, I nodded, and I filed it away. That was the moment everything changed. Not emotionally, structurally. Because once someone lies about something small, something easily verifiable, the rest of the system becomes unstable. And unstable systems require analysis. I didn't accuse him. I didn't ask questions. I started watching patterns. And for the first time in 11 years, I stopped being his partner and became someone quietly documenting a problem that hadn't fully revealed itself yet. After the cafe, I didn't confront Marcus, not because I was unsure of what I saw, but because I understood something more important. What I saw wasn't enough. Not yet. Suspicion is emotional. Proof is structural. And I don't make decisions based on incomplete data. So I adjusted. Externally, nothing changed. I still cooked dinner, still asked about his day, still kept the routine intact. Internally, everything shifted. About 2 weeks after that afternoon, Marcus told me he had to attend an off-site leadership workshop. Thursday. Overnight stay. Company's covering it, he said, already halfway through the explanation before I even asked. There was something rehearsed about the way he said it. I didn't react. That makes sense, I replied. Quarter planning usually happens around now. He nodded, relieved. That same night, after he went to bed, I opened my laptop and checked his company's public event calendar. The workshop was real, listed clearly. But it was a one-day event. It ended at 5 p.m. No overnight session, no second day. I sat there for a moment, staring at the screen. Again, on its own, that didn't prove anything. Executives stay late, networking happens. So I waited. Thursday night came. At 9:02 p.m., he texted, exhausted, heading to bed early. I replied normally, no delay, no suspicion in my tone. Get some rest. At 11:17 p.m., I logged into our shared credit card account. We keep one joint card for household expenses. I manage it, always have. There was a pending charge. A boutique hotel downtown. Not the conference hotel listed on the event page. A smaller place. Quiet. Known for weekend couple packages. I didn't call him. Didn't text. Didn't sit there imagining explanations. I took a screenshot. Saved it to a folder on my desktop. Closed the browser. The next morning he came home around 8 a.m. Same tote bag, laptop, a change of clothes. He kissed my cheek like nothing had shifted. The workshop ran late, he said. We all decided to stay nearby instead of driving home tired. I poured coffee into my mug. Which hotel, I asked. He answered immediately. The conference one. Without hesitation. Without correction. I nodded once. Okay. That was the moment something in me settled permanently. Not anger. Not even hurt. Clarity. Because once someone lies about a small, verifiable detail, everything else becomes a pattern waiting to be mapped. And I'm very good at mapping patterns. After that, I stopped looking for emotional reassurance. I focused on logistics. Affairs require time. Time leaves traces. Marcus's company issues mileage reimbursements for client visits. He's complained about the paperwork before, so occasionally he forwards summaries to our shared email when he needs to print them at home. I went back 3 months. Cross-referenced dates. His reported client visits didn't always match his late nights. On several days, he claimed to be across town meeting clients. But his mileage reports showed minimal driving, under 10 miles total. That's not a full day of meetings. That's a short trip. And back. I also reviewed our shared calendar. We've kept one since we moved in together. Mine is consistent, predictable. His had changed. Blocks labeled strategy session, field alignment. No locations, no details, just vague placeholders. Individually, nothing definitive. Together, a pattern. The second concrete moment came on a Wednesday. I had a dentist appointment that morning. His office was nearby. When I finished, I drove past his building. Not planned. Just curiosity. His car wasn't in the lot. At 11:15 a.m., he texted me. Back-to-back meetings. Swamped. I'll call later. I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I drove downtown, to the boutique hotel. The same one from the charge. It's 5 minutes from his office. His car was parked on the side street. I didn't get out. Didn't approach. Didn't create a scene. I took a photo. License plate visible. Hotel sign in the background. Then I drove home. Logged into work. Continued my day. That evening, he came home irritated. Traffic. Deadlines. Pressure from leadership. He mentioned Lena for the first time that week. Said she had been involved in some regional restructuring discussions. Described her as sharp, strategic. Then he looked at me. At least she's not boring. I held his gaze for a second, not reacting, not correcting, just registering. Because in that moment, something finalized internally. I wasn't guessing anymore. I was confirming frequency. That night, after he went to bed, I pulled our phone records. We're on a shared plan. I don't read messages. I'm not interested in content. I'm interested in patterns. There were dozens of short calls between his number and Lena's. Late evenings. Early mornings. Clusters. Time frames that overlapped with his meetings. I cross-referenced timestamps. With the hotel charge. With the morning I saw his car. They aligned. Consistently. By that stage, I had enough to confront him privately, directly. But I didn't. Not yet. Because this wasn't just about betrayal. It was about structure. We shared property, shared finances. In Ohio, fault doesn't automatically dictate asset division. But documented infidelity? It shifts leverage. And I wasn't interested in emotional confrontation. I was interested in positioning. So the following Thursday, during my lunch break, I met with an attorney. I brought printed copies, hotel charge, car photo, call logs. I asked direct questions, clear scenarios, best case outcomes, worst case risks. He told me the same thing I already suspected. Stay calm, gather documentation, don't tip your hand until you're ready. I nodded. That was already the plan. That weekend, Marcus invited 2 coworkers over for dinner, including Lena. I agreed. Of course I did. Watching them inside my own home clarified everything. They were careful. No touching. No obvious signals. But their eye contact lingered too long. Too comfortable. Too practiced. At one point, Marcus made a comment while pouring wine. Some people just don't evolve, he said lightly. They get stuck in routines. He looked directly at me. Lena smiled. Not surprised. Not uncomfortable. Familiar. Daniel. No, not Daniel anymore. Marcus. And Lena. Their rhythm wasn't new. It was established. I didn't respond. I cleared plates, refilled glasses, moved through the evening like nothing had shifted. But the difference was this. He thought I was passive, unaware, predictable. In reality, I was letting him build a pattern so complete, it would hold under scrutiny anywhere. And when someone believes you're too boring to notice, they stop hiding carefully. That's when they make mistakes. And Marcus was starting to get careless. After that dinner, Marcus stopped being careful in ways that mattered. Not openly, not recklessly, but subtly enough that someone who wasn't paying attention would miss it. The problem for him was, I was. He didn't pull away from me completely. That would have raised questions. Instead, he adjusted just enough to maintain the illusion of normal. We still ate dinner together most nights, still shared space, still functioned. But emotionally, he was elsewhere. And the distance started showing in the details. He dressed differently for work, sharper, more deliberate, new shirts, tailored cuts. Cologne he didn't wear at home, but I could smell traces of it when he came back late. There were new purchases too, things that never appeared in our shared spaces. And one night, while folding laundry, I noticed something small but telling. A set of clothes I had never seen before. Not mine. Not his usual style. New, unfamiliar. I folded them anyway, placed them neatly where they belonged, and said nothing. Because by then, I understood his pattern. Marcus didn't want to leave. He wanted to expand, to keep stability here and excitement somewhere else. The confirmation came a few nights later. We were sitting in their living room, TV on, neither of us really watching. He spoke without looking at me. Do you ever feel like you settled too early? The question hung in the air, carefully placed, measured. I turned slightly toward him. Are you asking me, I said calmly, or telling me? He exhaled. Just thinking out loud. Silence stretched. Then he added, almost casually, sometimes I wonder what it would be like to be with someone more dynamic. There it was. Not an accusation. Not a confession. A test. I studied his face. There was no guilt there. Only curiosity. Evaluation. Like he was assessing options, while assuming I would remain constant. Are you unhappy enough to leave? I asked. Direct. No emotion. He finally looked at me then, and shook his head. No, he said, you're stable. That matters. Stable. The word landed differently that time. Not as an insult. As a strategy. You shouldn't be so sensitive, he added. I'm just being honest. I nodded once. I appreciate honesty. And I meant it. Because in that moment, everything aligned. He didn't want to end the relationship. He wanted to redefine it, without my consent. Keep the foundation. Outsource the rest. I didn't argue. Didn't challenge him. I simply said, I'll think about what you said. And I did, just not in the way he expected. Behind the scenes, I started separating our finances more cleanly. Not dramatically. Not in a way that would trigger suspicion. Just structured. I opened a new individual account. Redirected my salary. Left joint funds intact. No sudden withdrawals. No irregular movement. Everything legal. Everything documented. At the same time, I requested a formal valuation of the townhouse. I told him I was considering refinancing options. He agreed without much interest. Why would he question it? From his perspective, nothing was changing. The final confirmation came from him, unintentionally. One Friday afternoon, I went into the spare room to print a document. His laptop was open, email inbox visible. I wasn't looking for anything. I didn't need to, but there it was. At the top, an email from Lena. Subject line: Thursday. The preview line was enough. Same room as last time works for me. I didn't open it. Didn't scroll. Didn't dig deeper. I didn't need more. At that point, I had timeline, pattern, financial evidence, location confirmation, and now repetition. That was the difference. One incident can be explained. A pattern cannot. I stepped away from the laptop, closed the door behind me, and stood in the hallway for a moment, not overwhelmed, not emotional, just still, because the uncertainty was gone, and clarity is quiet. That evening, when Marcus came home, he acted the same. Complained about work, mentioned pressure from leadership, talked about performance reviews. He even referenced Lena again, called her indispensable. I listened, nodded, filed it away, because at that point, the decision wasn't emotional anymore. It was procedural. I chose a date. The following Thursday, the same day referenced in the email. If he was going to repeat the pattern, I wanted everything aligned. In the days leading up to it, I finalized everything. Met with my attorney again. Reviewed documents. Prepared filings. Secured a short-term furnished rental across town. Month-to-month lease. Close to my office. Neutral. Temporary. I wasn't leaving impulsively. I was staging an exit. Quietly. Precisely. Marcus noticed none of it. Why would he? In his mind, I was still the same. Predictable. Safe. Boring. He believed I would stay. That I would absorb whatever version of him he chose to present. He didn't realize I had already stepped out of the relationship. I was just finishing the paperwork. Thursday morning arrived. He mentioned he had back-to-back site visits. Probably running late, he added. I smiled slightly. Hope it goes well. No tension. No suspicion. Just normal. At 1 p.m., I logged into our shared credit card account and waited. 2:17 p.m., pending charge. Same boutique hotel. Different room number. I took a screenshot, saved it, closed the browser. Then I picked up my phone and called my attorney. I'm ready, I said. He didn't ask for clarification. He already knew. I emailed him the new documentation. Authorized him to proceed the next morning. That evening, Marcus texted around 8 p.m. Long day. Might grab a drink with the team. I replied, okay, I'm ordering takeout. No questions. No pressure. No cracks. But I wasn't at home waiting. I drove to the townhouse, walked inside, and began packing. Not his things. Mine. Documents. Laptop. Personal items. Everything that mattered. Everything that was mine before him and would remain mine after. I moved quietly, methodically. No rush. No hesitation. Around 10:30 p.m., he came home, slightly flushed, smelling faintly of hotel soap, not alcohol. He launched into a story about how demanding the day had been, how intense leadership had become, how exhausting performance reviews were. Then he looked at me. You wouldn't understand, he said. You prefer safe lanes. I met his eyes, held them for a second, then nodded once. Maybe. Inside. The timeline was complete. Financial separation, legal filing scheduled, exit in motion. He still believed the worst thing he had done was hurt my feelings. He had no idea. He had already lost everything that mattered. Friday morning at 9 a.m., my attorney filed the petition. Clean. Simple. No theatrics. Irreconcilable differences. No children. No need to expose everything immediately. Leverage isn't about noise. It's about timing. At 11:30 a.m., Marcus was served at his office. I didn't have to be there. I didn't need to see it. By 11:42, my phone rang. His name on the screen. I let it ring once. Twice. Then I answered. His voice wasn't angry. Not yet. It was confused. Teresa, what is this? No greeting. No build-up. Just disorientation. It's not a mistake, I said calmly. A pause. You're filing for... what? Why? He asked, like the answer hadn't been building for months. I leaned back in my chair, measured my words. I've been aware of your relationship with Lena for a while. Silence. Not short. Not stunned. Calculating. Then, that's not what you think it is. Predictable. I didn't interrupt. I let him continue. We've had meetings, yeah, but that's work. She's involved in... Marcus, I said quietly, cutting through the explanation. Mentorship doesn't happen in boutique hotel rooms at 2 in the afternoon. That stopped him. Completely. The silence that followed was different. Not defensive. Not dismissive. Heavy. How long? He asked finally. I looked at the wall in front of me. Neutral. Unimportant. Long enough to plan responsibly. Another pause. Then the shift. You've been spying on me? He snapped, tone sharpening, reaching for control. No, I said, I've been paying attention. His breathing changed. Faster, less controlled. "You're overanalyzing this," he said. "You always do that. You take small things and turn them into—" "I verified," I replied. "That's different." He tried one more angle. "You're blowing this up over nothing. We could talk about this. Fix it." Fix it. I almost smiled. Not because it was funny, because it was expected. "I already did the part that matters," I said. "What does that mean?" "It means further communication goes through attorneys." And before he could respond, I ended the call, not abruptly, not emotionally, just concluded. Within seconds, my phone lit up again. I didn't answer. Different number, voicemail, ignored. Then emails. "We need to talk like adults." We were, just not the way he wanted. I blocked his number, blocked him on every platform, set filters for his email. Not out of anger, procedure. Because once the facts are stated, anything beyond that becomes negotiation or manipulation. And I wasn't interested in either outside the proper channels. By the end of that afternoon, my attorney confirmed he had retained counsel. Expected. What he didn't expect was silence. No confrontation. No emotional breakdown. No attempt to reconcile. Because in his version of the story, I was supposed to react, to argue, to fight for something he had already devalued. Instead, I exited. Cleanly. Over the weekend, there were attempts. Indirect ones. He emailed my sister, asked if I was going through something. She forwarded it to me. Didn't respond. I told her not to engage. That was the only message that slipped through. By Monday, mediation discussions had started. Asset lists, accounts, property, all documented, all prepared, no scrambling, no last-minute adjustments, because I had already separated my income weeks earlier. Nothing to explain, nothing to defend. During mediation, his tone shifted again. My attorney relayed everything. "It didn't mean anything. It was a mistake. You're overreacting." Then, marriages require forgiveness. What he couldn't explain were timestamps, hotel charges, call logs, work hours. That mattered more than he realized. Because if escalated, it didn't just affect the divorce. It touched his professional standing. I didn't threaten it. I didn't need to. The implication alone changed his posture. When it came to the townhouse, he wanted to keep it. It was closer to his office. Convenient. Familiar. But convenience doesn't pay mortgages. Not alone. He couldn't afford it. I could, but I didn't want it. I wanted separation. Liquidity. A clean break. So we sold. The market had risen. There was equity. After everything settled, mortgage, fees, division, I had enough. Enough to move forward without disruption, without compromise. There were no dramatic court scenes, no shouting, no final confrontation in a hallway, just paperwork, deadlines, signatures. The most telling part? He never apologized. Not once. Not in writing. Not in any documented communication. Everything was framed as mutual, as if we had both drifted, as if betrayal was just misalignment. That told me everything I needed to know. He didn't regret what he did. He regretted miscalculating me. The townhouse sold 6 weeks later. We signed separately. Different rooms. Different schedules. I didn't see him. Didn't need to. Funds were wired that afternoon. By then, I had already extended my lease. Started looking for something smaller. Closer to work. Not an upgrade. A reset. Through attorneys, he made one final request. He wanted to talk. Closure, he called it. My lawyer asked if I was open to it. I declined. Closure requires honesty. That opportunity had already passed. Weeks later, I heard something through a mutual acquaintance. Lena's involvement had surfaced. Workplace rumors? Questions. Consequences extending beyond what they expected. I didn't follow up. Didn't investigate. Not my responsibility. Not my concern. He sent one last message through counsel. Asked if I really felt nothing after 11 years. That was the only time emotion showed through. The answer was simple. I felt enough to act. People confuse calm with weakness. Predictability with blindness. He thought I was too boring to notice. Too stable to leave. Too safe to disrupt. What he didn't understand was that stability is leverage. Discipline is power. And silence is control. When everything finalized, I didn't celebrate. I updated my budget. Scheduled movers. Went back to work Monday morning. No dramatic transformation. No reinvention. Just continuation. Because I never stepped into the chaos. I stayed in process. And when you stay in process, you don't walk away damaged. You walk away clean.